We're talking about the Gimmel, and as a shape, the Gimmel is an inverse of the Lamed, and the two mean to roll. So I'm going to show you a little bit of playing around with the words dealing with Gimmel and Lamed, because the reason that Israel got thrown away like the boomerang, like the Gimmel, is because they did not regard the Lamed, which is the teaching and the learning, literally in Hebrew the word lamed, of the Torah instructions, which are represented by the letter Kaf. Kaf and lamed together mean all. And just to show you another way it's played out, if you read how the menorah was formed, it says there's 22 cups or bowls in the menorah. There's 22 letters. I think that the 22 bowls were probably flames of the menorah, hence the lights of the menorah were represented by the 22 letters of the alphabet. The four in the middle are Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem. Yod as a prefix means he will, Lamed, Mem as a suffix means to them, and Kaf, Lamed means all. So here, if Yeshua, the sent one, the emissary, the voyager sent to redeem us and save us, that Yahweh gave, is the Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, the Shemesh, the servant candle in the middle. I know I'm throwing concepts out here, but I'm trying to give you a picture. It means he will do, Yod, all of them. All of what? All the Torah instructions. He, the sent one, the Shemesh, the servant candle that lights the menorah, Yeshua said, I'm the vine, you're the branches. You stay plugged into me, all things are possible. You don't do what I say, I will cut you off and throw you into the fire to be burned up. And you can do nothing without me. There's a little picture in the picture of the menorah. But if we think, oh, vine and branches, there's a grapevine. But if we think, oh, vine and branches, there's the menorah, position of the psalmic, position of day 4, where he put the sun, moon, and the stars in the sky, dispositions of responsible principalities of authority. 7, ecclesia, the kahal, the assembly. Kahal, very similar. Kaf, he, lamed, kaf, lamed again. The assemblies that you come and learn the Torah instructions. I'm just blending, I'm severing, connecting all these dots together to give you a picture. The point is, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem also means to have the capacity, the ability to prevail, to be successful. And it also is where we get the word calamity, which is the inverse. So in every word and every letter, there's the positive and the negative, the binary distinction, the blessing and the curse. If you keep all these words of the Torah learning, lameding, so that from mem, lamed, teach and learn, so that from the teaching and learning that you can mem, from mem, a blessed noon, restart. There's the words of the alphabet song. That's what this is about. We are trying to teach and learn the words of the Torah to mem, gestate, incubate like a pregnancy, to then bring forth a blessed noon, the restoration of the covenant of the blessing to Israel. Israel, again, just being the people who choose to be of Yahweh's covenant, of his house, his people. Yashar, Yod, Shin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. Yod, Shin, Resh is the word for straight path. The straight path in El is power or strength, or it's a short form of Elohim. And it also, as a prefix, can mean motion towards. So here, Israel can be literally read of as the straight path where there is power and strength. And there's other verses, again, we're running out of time, but there's all these verses. Yahweh says, this is the way I've made. The word wicked comes from the word wick, or is similar to the word wick, which is a twisting, which is very similar to Gimmel Lamed, twisting and turning. Wickedness is twistedness, which is perversion, which is distortion of the straight path, Kaf and Lamed of Yahweh. So even though there's a Lamed, which means to turn, the Lamed is the letter that bends around, the inverse of the Gimmel, which means to repeat. Keep repeating, keep learning. That's the way you learn, is to repeat. The process is embedded in the spelling of the word itself. But see, there's all these pictures and models and forms embedded in the language. So here, just trying to play around, look at Gilligan's Island, a TV show back in the 60s. Gilligan. Who ever heard of somebody named Gilligan? So I was thinking, how would you spell that in Hebrew? Gilligan, phonetically. Gimel Lamed Yod, Gilli-gun. Well, the word Gilli is where you get the word for exile. because you have Gimmel Lamed Hey, Gimmel Lamed Vav Yod, he who has uncovered, discovered, or detected. Well, Gilligan was exiled because he discovered a garden island out in the middle of the ocean. So Gilligan itself means you're exiled because you discovered this island, this garden. See, if you start playing around with the language and do your own sephering, connecting the dots. The other interesting thing about Gimmel Lamed is Galul. Remember, there was a fellow who did something really stupid, and his name was Galuli. He ended up changing his name. He was in the papers back with Tanya Harding and all. But the word Galuli literally means idol. For Israel to go after idols was really stupid. So the word idol is Galuli, or that would be my idol. Galul is the word for idol, and it means rolled. And it's also something that you might see a dog leave behind, which is a little roll. And Yahweh has said in other places, it's like you pick this thing up and you stand it up, this rolled pillar, and you bow down to it. What an idiot. I mean, there's verses that say this. We don't see it in English. The word galim is a mantle or a cloak, which is something which covers. So Gimmel Lamed can mean something that's covered or something also open to the public. He says, if you go after idols, instead of me being your covering, I will make you walk uncovered, exiled, stripped of everything I gave you. Your enemies will come in and pillage you and plunder you and take off your clothes and walk you out in shame. See, all these words play into the pictures of exactly what happened. But Gilal also, Gimmel Lamed Lamed, means on account of or because. So you add a vav in the middle of it. On account of, because of your idols, you will be uncovered. But if you discover the reason and you return, because it's a bowl, it's a sphere. He made the word for bowl and sphere is also there. The word sephir is also the word sapphire. The blue throne room floor is also the word Samik Pei Yod Resh. Samik Pei Resh is sephir. Connect the dots, sephir. Put these things together. The world was made as a globe, a sphere, a bowl. It's all the same word, because if it goes this way, it's going to come back that way. You go to the east, you'll end up in the west. You go to the north, you'll end up in the south. Yahweh designed the planet. Oh, he put it as a ball and threw it out into the sky. Wow, what a convenient shape. It works with physics. But it's a model. It's a picture. If he sent us into dispersion, those guys were called the Galut, the Gimmel Lamed. The word Galut, Gimmel Lamed Vav Tav. Vav Tav is the plural of the Gimmel Lameds. Bugs Bunny, right? You big Galut. Well, Mel Banks apparently called him Galut because that's a Yiddish or a Hebrew word meaning you stupid idiot. Why were the Israelites called stupid idiot Galuts? Because they blew off the covenant, they chewed it up and spit it out, got dispersed like a bunch of idiots. But Yahweh says, the world is a round shape, right? There's the model. You can come back. You can come back. But Israel hasn't come back. 2,730-year curse, ending 2010, right? We talked about this before. Assyria invaded Samaria, 13-year siege, captured the capital, 721 BC. Leviticus 26, Yahweh says, I will multiply your punishment, your curse, like your sins 7 times. Why would he come up with this number 7 times? I'm bouncing all over the page again here, but I'm going to wrap this up to show you. The word 7 is shavah, which is oath. When you keep the 7th-day Sabbath, you are participating in an oath, like a wedding ring. When you keep the 7 festivals around the year, the 1st month and the 7th month, it's an oath. Yahweh's oath is a picture. The word oath, Aleph Vav Tav, is Shavah, Shavua, it means 7, but it's also Aleph Vav Tav, which means an oath, a sign, a symbol. It's also a letter of the alphabet. Each letter of the alphabet is the aspect of Yahweh's oath. He is sworn to. And we are, as being Israel, sworn also, and here's the sworn oath. Just like your sins of wickedness, perversion, spinning off and throwing away my stuff, I will, like the 7-fold oath, I will multiply your sins 7 times. Ezekiel chapter 4, for the house of Israel, it was 390 days, a day for a year. 7 times 390 is 2,730 from 721 BC, comes to be 2010. The point of talking about this these days is because it's the end of the curse, the end of the exile, the end of the time that the galut have to really be foolish. Why we're talking about this is because we're trying to correct the foolishness and come back to the covenant. Out of the love of Yahweh, out of the respect for his sent Yeshua, his sent one, his salvation, in reply to our calling out, Yeshua, help us, save us. Yahweh, save us. Yahshua, save us, help us, redeem us. So he sent Yahshua. He sent Yahweh's salvation. The question is, what's his character? Did he do away with the covenant? Yes, I'm come to save you from that horrible covenant. No, he came to, by his grace, say, here, I will pay the punishment of your sins. Now you guys can come back. Here, I'll pay your parking ticket. Now you can come back. Not so you can come back and keep parking illegally, but so you can come back and not having to pay the fine and the legal consequences and all the impound fees and all the insurance claims and everything else and the attorney's fee. He came to relieve us of the expense of our crime. That's his grace, so that we could come back and enter back into his house. You see, we started talking about the English alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's a pause. That was the weapon. That was the Zion. Let's continue it. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Well, what are those letters? Those line up with, essentially, Het, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei. Only there's an added letter J in the English alphabet. That didn't come about until approximately the year 1100 to 1700. There was no letter J. It started to replace the letter I and then be added to it and supplementary to it. But you look up, I was talking to a guy on the phone. He said, hey, my name's J. What's it mean? And I said, well, I'm not sure what the name J means, but I can tell you what the letter J means and where it came from. And I said, what have you heard that it means? And he says, well, I've heard that the name J means to be gullible, to be beguiled, to be stupid. And I thought, well, the letter J didn't exist as a letter. It came to replace the letter Yod, which is the 10th letter. The word Jesus used to be spelled with an I in Greek and Latin. There was no letter J. But interestingly enough, I looked up the word J in this very old dictionary that we have, an English dictionary, and it means basically to be gawky or foolish or easily deceived or a simpleton. And it's like, to think that we could take out the letter of the Creator, the Yod, and replace it with a J which doesn't exist and say, by this name every knee should bow. This guy who starts with the letter J, there is no letter J. It's the Yod, the hand of the Creator, who sent us his salvation. That's the guy that we should bow before. The one who said, return to me and I will return to you. The guy who gave us the boomerang. The guy who gave us his word by which we should be healed and saved and redeemed. But to take it away, it's almost like in the English language, somebody plugged in this letter J and says, these guys are so stupid. They're so easily tricked. They're so easily deceived. Bunch of idiots. And then you say, well, wait a minute, what about the other letters in the English alphabet? Some other things are different. H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. There's no Samek. The Samek is the menorah. The menorah has the 22 lights like the letters of the alphabet, which tell us our covenant. It's gone. There's no Zadi. What's the Zadi? The Zadi is the Ark of the Covenant that has the words of the Torah. It's gone. But then what you have is QRS. Well, that stands for Kuf Resh Shin, which is after this, our noble Resh exalted in the sky. But Resh Shin Tav literally means to collect, a net, a snare, a trap. Resh Shin Tav, that's RST. But what about UVW? Well, UVW are all the phonetic sounds of the letter Vav, which happens to be the number 6, which is like 666. UVW is 666. Why? X. Well, X is the sign of the covenant. Why? Why? Well, why? There's that missing Yod. Because of the working of Z. But Z is the word for Zion, and Zion is the word going back to the letter G, which was replaced of the Gimmel. So I'm connecting all these things together. And Z is the cutoff letter that says, because you guys cut off my word, you will be subjected to the beast, the one who has profaned my name, the 666 business, where you have no place in my covenant, and I will take away the Yod, the hand, the work of the Creator, and the menorah, the light inside the meeting place, and the Zadi, the Ark of the Covenant that you guys don't care about anyway. It's like, Well, so what's the message in the English alphabet? A, B, C, D, E, F, G says, just like Alphabet Gimmel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zion, says, here's the plan of the Creator. He'll make the material universe materialize to give us the sent one to retrieve us home again. Behold, he's the man who was slain. And basically, if we make the decision to regard his words, we can enter into the chet. But entering into the Hebrew chet, the fence, we learn his instructions, kaf lamed, we're sealed as his, tet yod, learn his instructions, kaf lamed, mem nun, believe the promises of blessing and cursing, so of course we'll take the blessing and not the curse. Samak and pei, shema, shomer, together one. Shema, hear, believe, and do. Shomer, watch, keep, and guard. Pei, the mouth, sakot, in fellowship together one. Zadi, it stands alone. It's the Ark of the Covenant. It's the archetype. It's the icon. It's the righteous one. It's Yeshua, the embodiment of the Word made flesh. The model that we should be just like. Follow me, as he said. Okay, follow him in keeping the words of this Torah. Not in saying because we have grace, we don't have to keep the words, but because we have grace, we can keep the words. Moshe said these words are near you and in your mouth. Don't say they're too hard. They're up in heaven. Somebody should go get them and bring them down, though that's what the Gimmel did. The Gimmel was the sent one who from the heavenly realm came to show us the way to keep these words. Nor, he says, is it on the other side of the sea? The other side of the sea, well, this is another extension, but the word for seas is imim, which also means west, the other side. The eastern is the old path. The word for the west is the imim, because that's where the western sea was. What are we doing here? We are the lost sheep, the dispersed of the house of Israel, cast to the western seas, and we're talking about coming back with the ability to do the words of this Torah. We're fulfilling prophecy here. Kuf, after this, Resh Shin Tav, our noble Resh, exalted in the sky. Well, there's a picture in the book of Revelation of Yeshua coming back. El Shaddai, he's identified as the one who was dead, yet he lives, the Vav man that was Zion, and yet he's also regarded as Aleph Tav and El Shaddai. That's who he is. He's this guy who's described by all the letters of this Hebrew alphabet. And he says, as I am, so you should be. The Zadi, as Zadi stands alone, though all Israel shall become. As he is, so we shall become. He will exalt his people, Israel, once again. These are all Gimmeling concepts. The boomerang, the return. There is a number of scriptures that I can't take time to read, but I'm going to read you where they are. If you look in Strong's Concordance under the word return, take the time to look these up. You could just run right down the word for return. 2 Samuel 7:3, 2 Chronicles 6:24 and 38. It says, pray by the way of their land. Pray by the way of their land. That's Solomon praying and saying, when these people are dispersed, when the house of Israel is dispersed for having gone wayward, if they were turn to this place and pray by way of their land. Well, that's the way it's translated. But the word their land is Aleph, Resh, Zadi, Mem. Eretzem. Well, Aleph is a prefix, means I will. Resh, Zadi means to run. Aleph Resh is where you get the word for area. It's a tract of land if it comes from a French word. And Resh Zadi also is like a bishop in chess, or a runner, or a sprinter, or a courier, or one who runs a route. The word aretz literally means the runner's course. To say pray by way of their land, it's an English translation, but it's basically saying pray or tefillah, to request, to petition Yahweh by the means of the course they were told to run. But see, it all depends on how you translate it. That was 2 Chronicles 6:38. Isaiah 19:22, 21:12, 35:10, 44:22. And these are in Strong's. You can look up it in Strong's under the word return. This is what this says in Isaiah 44:22. Remember these things, Yaakov and Israel, for you are my servant. I fashioned you to be my servant. Israel, do not forget me. I will have wiped away your willful sins. Then it says, Yahweh has redeemed Jacob. He will glorify himself through Israel. Israel is the vehicle, the mechanism, the people through which Yahweh has determined to glorify himself. If you want to see Yahweh glorified, you need to choose to become Israel. Thus says Yahweh, your Redeemer, and the one who formed you from the womb. Anoki Yahweh, who made everything. Well, here's the interesting thing. The word for your Redeemer, remember the word for Redeemer is Shin Ayin, but here it's also this word here, Gimmel, Ayin, Lam, and Kaf, Gali. Well, that's the word, it's playing a word. The word Gaal is your Redeemer. What does it redeem you from? The uncovered idolatry, the being cast out. Because, see, each word can be read as a positive and negative. You'll see the answer to the predicament is embedded in the writing of the letters of the Hebrew words. What do you have to do? Return to the aleph that he gave you, which is Gimmel back, like a boomerang, to the authorized instructions of the Torah. Gimmel, aleph, lamed, kaf. Golly. Galak. Anyway. Jeremiah, all through Hosea. Read Jeremiah 30. You know, this would take hours to go through all this. Jeremiah 2:14. Is Israel a slave born to a house? Why has he become prey? Why has the Jews and why has Israel become scorned and hated and despised across the face of the earth? Then he mentions two people group. Why have they been allowed to smash your skull? The word skull, Gimmel Lamed again. Has this not been done to you because you forsake Yahweh your Elohim when he leads you on the path? That's what he says. The path, the straight path, the Yashar Derek, the Halakah, how you walk, Ha, Hey, Lamed Kaf, there's those two letters again. Lamed means unto, it's the shepherd's staff, which is the provocation, it's pull, it's push, it's got the curved end and the pointy end, the letter Lamed. And then the Kaf, which is to you, which is the Torah. Halakah, how you walk the Torah. The Derek is the path. He says, I had planted you from a choice vine, faithful seed, but like a camel careening in her ways. Remember, the ox was used to plow a straight course because it wouldn't careen, it would go straight. But like a camel, there's the Gimmel, in a serpentine manner. We talked about the word Mishkan before as being the Mishkan pattern. I'm going to show you a little play on words of the word Mishkan. Just to show you, because I'm trying to show you mechanisms of dissecting the language so you can do this. That's what this is all about. The word Mishkan. Mem, remember that's a place of birthing. It's the womb. It's the water. Mem, Sheen, symbol for El Shaddai. It also means who, that, which, if it's used as a prefix. Mish, Kaf, Nun. Kaf is the open hand. It also can mean you if it's a suffix. If it's a prefix, it means like. Nun is the living thing which jumps out of and away from. It's the word for fish. Okay, you could say, well, let me see, this is the water, or this is the womb. Sheen for who will jump out to do the Torah. Mishkan. Somehow there's something in the Mishkan is the womb, the nutrient laver, because Mem lines up with the laver, so does the Nun, that which jumps up and away from the one who's empowered to actively engage in the doing of the Torah instructions that were provided from El Shaddai is in the Mishkan. But there's another way to read Mishkan, which would be Mem, which is the place of Yod Shin, which means, if you look in page 265 of the dictionary, it means there are, possession, property, existence, reality. It's basically where we get the word is. It all depends on what the definition of the word is. Thank you, Bill Clinton. It was a matter of saying there is, there are, that means this is reality. It's possession and property. Possession and property of who? El Shaddai, the Creator. This is El Shaddai's property, his personal possession. When you come into the Het, the next letter is Tet, which is like a seal, which is like a branding iron, which is the symbol of circumcision, which is also being, you might say, he puts his spirit within you. He says, you are now mine. Het, Tet, Yod. You come into the Het, the big white fence of the kingdom of Yod He Vav He. Tet, you're sealed as his, stamped, branded. Yod, you're now mine. But see, Tet's also this spinning wheel, like a potter's wheel. And Yod is the hand that works, forming you. Yod is hand who formed my hand to hold on to his. Mish, Kaf Nun, as a word means yes, truly, surely, so, thus, absolutely. The Mishkan is the hidden place where it develops before it's birthed and brought to light in its time, the place where Yahweh's personal true possessions are given absolute foundation of substance and reality. That's what's in the Mishkan. To talk about the Gimmel specifically, in Hebrew you might say Gimmel. Where have you heard that word? Gamaliel. How would you spell the word Gamaliel? Now, I don't know the exact way to spell it, but phonetically, Gamaliel. He was the great rabbi that Paul, Saul of Tarsus, studied under, right? Gimmel, Gamaliel. If you play with that word in the dictionary, Gimmel Mem Lamed means camel, pay, reward, recompense, done to him or rendered so. In other words, this concept of Gimmel, like I said, remember it's the boomerang, what goes around comes around. It means, as a word spelled Gimmel Mem Lamed, it simply means to give you your pay. This is what you got coming. Gimmel, like the camel, the one that goes back and forth, like the boomerang. What goes around is going to come around. And if something's coming around, you have the choice to change what you send back going around. So Yeshua said, do not return cursing for cursing. Return blessing for cursing. Because why? Because you get the blessing. And if somebody provokes you with a cursing, return the blessing. Because what you send around is your choice of what you get back. They've already determined their choice. If they send a guy to cursing, they're going to get the cursing. Yeshua came to show us the way to walk out this stuff is how to get the blessing. The Gimmel is all about how do we get back the blessing. Yeshua rose from the dead and the disciples said, is it now you're going to restore, Gimmel, restore the kingdom to Israel? Like a camel hump, the gable end of a house, this big hump, something large, something prominent. He promised to restore the preeminence, the prominence of Israel when they return to the blessing, the covenant, the instructions. I keep saying this because we have been told by most of the voices that what we have to look forward to is the Antichrist, the beast, the tribulation, the New World Order, the destruction of the planet. And I'm trying to give a different voice here. I'm trying to say if you know how to read these words, it looks like we have a different message on which to pin our hopes and expectations, but it's going to take our involvement. It's not going to happen by itself. We must return to the covenant in order for those other things to happen. It's contingent. Yahweh just called out his people out of Egypt and gave it to them the first time. And I could show you the verses where he says that's not going to happen this way. When people say, oh, he changed some things. Yes, he did. What he changed was he's saying, you will now have to come back to me and beg. And you're going to have to say to me, playing off the word again, gimme, camel, give me that covenant. You said, give me that covenant. Give me those blessings. Hey, you want them? Go back and read the instructions. He'll tell you how to get them. It also means Gimmel Mem. If you read the word Gimmel Mem in the scriptures, you're reading it, and you see this word spelled this way. Gimmel Mem would be a final mem, so that would be a closed. And it means also, even, as well as. It's like a hump. It's heaped up. It's a whole pile of stuff. Again, there's the picture of the bowl or the sphere. It's the same shape, like the camel's hump. So when you say gam, it means something which has become ripe, to become complete, to become weaned, or it's a muzzle to put on a calf or a lamb so that they don't keep nursing. It's to be made whole, sound, and large. And it's like, we've always heard from a Christian perspective, the milk of the word versus the meat of the word. It's a Gimmel concept. It's going back to that filling station and having the gas pumped into you so that you can move. This has to do with somic and pei, Shema, Shomer, together one. What does it mean to be somic and pei? The menorah, the table of showbread, and the altar of incense. The three that work on the inside triangle according to the Mishkan pattern. The menorah, do justly. Be one of the lampstands, one of the arms of his menorah. Be the menorah. Do, it's called mishpat, which is simply the right thing. That's being the menorah. Do what he said was right according to his standards. And I can show you all these verses where he says, I chose my desire of what was right, and you guys said, no, we're going to choose other things. And he says, you chose what I did not desire. This is Yahweh's words against Israel. I chose what was right and straight and my personal preference, and you guys said, no. And then you made up a religion that says, we don't have to. It's been taken away. He did it for us. It has nothing to do with us. But I'll tell you, every single word in Hebrew tells a different message. You could say, well, what have I got to do with Hebrew? I've had these words spoken to me. I'm a 21st century American. I'm a Christian. I got nothing to do with Hebrew. Well, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I'm telling you what the Hebrew says. What the Hebrew says is we can come back to the covenant. Yahweh is under contract obligation to not only allow us to come, but also give us his protection, his covering under every term of that contract. He has no choice because he said so. And he says, the words which I spoke out of my mouth will not return to me void. They will accomplish every single thing I said before heaven and earth will be done away with. It's like, heaven and earth are still here. He's still under contract obligation. And Yeshua, thanks be to him who came to save us because we have cried out for his help and deliverance, he came to ensure the fact that by his grace, the word grace is chet nun, chen, which is the big white fence, and nun, the impartation within the fence. And it's the word where you get the word Khan, K-H-A-N, like Genghis Khan, which is the warlord, who allows wayfarers and journeyers and stragglers to come under his provision and protection to spend the night and have of all his stuff without cost to them. That's Khan. That's grace. We can come and have all his stuff because of his benevolent, philanthropic kindness and goodness and mercy. Yeah. But then he says, learn my ways. You want to come into my fence? Chet? Kaf Lamed, the altar of sacrifice. Learn the Torah. Teach and learn. Memnun, understand the blessings. Memnun is also the laver which speaks of virtue and cleaning, purity. It also is in one of the models on the chart. You'll see it has to do with your daughter, a chaste, C-H-A-S-T-E, daughter, a clean and virtuous. What would it be to be Yahweh's daughter? Kaf and Lamed lines up with the word for son, which has to do with a good son who learns the instructions and does what his father said. What would it be to be Yahweh's daughter, to be Yahweh's son? And then the menorah, the good steward. The menorah, table of showbread, lines up with the handmaid, the one who has mercy and compassion. And then the pei lines up with the beast of burden, doing what he said to do, plowing the field, going through, walking with him. My point of the Psalmic and pei, do justly, love mercy, and then walk humbly with your Elohim. That's Micah 6:8. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your Elohim. That's what he requires of us. It's as simple as that. Is that so hard? Sure it is. We don't want to. We would like to think we have no obligation. We would like to think it's all been done for us. We would like to think the covenant was done away with. We would like to think all we got to do is be born, wait for the rapture bus, and it should be here any minute, and we go to heaven and done deal. That's not the message which is in this scripture. It's just not the the message that's embedded in the Hebrew alphabet. Now, if somebody wants to prove that the Hebrew alphabet was done away with, then you'll have to contend with Yeshua saying not one jot or tittle, which is not one little stroke of the pen, which is, in writing, and he is the Word made flesh. They carved a piece of his flesh out. Maybe that represents one of the letters that was done away with. Or when they carved pieces of his flesh out and beat him with the whip, the Zion, maybe that was to show what would happen if we did disparage his word. These are all pictures. The point is, for the Gimmel, we're talking about the Gimmel. For the Gimmel to mean ripe fruit, made whole, complete, sound, is to learn his instructions, believe what he said, and act accordingly as good stewards. So I happen to see this wine bottle, and to just read you how the person described this bottle of wine. If you look at the word for purple and the word for grapes and the fact that the Israelites went into the land and they brought back this huge thing of grapes, in the Hebrew, all these words tie together. So it sounds like I'm going off on a tangent, but there's no time to make the connections, but they're there. This is the way somebody else described a certain bottle of wine from Butterfield Station, a Cabernet. It says, the best way to describe this particular wine is ripe and generous. Those are two adjectives describing general. Cedar and sweet oak, strong and powerful, able to give its protection. That's Gimmel. Greet the nose, which is to say hen. Oh, here, greet someone who came to investigate. Whole, ripe, black cherry and juicy plum tantalizes the mouth. That's the beautiful taste of Yahweh's Torah. Dances lively, finishes firm but supple, leaving you ready to enjoy another glass. Those are all Gimmel concepts. You see, when Yahweh made the Gimmel as an expression of himself, of the bet body that he gave himself, you could say the first letter in the Torah is the letter bet. We talked about that last week. The last letter of the Torah is the Lamed. Well, bet Lamed can mean not, but it also is where we get the word in Latin and French for ball, which is that which rolls, right? But it's also to dance. And you could say when you come to the end of the Torah portion and you go back to the beginning, now you've got the word spelled Lamed Bet, which is the word for heart, where we get the word love, because it's pronounced love. So you could say the interesting relationship between Bet Lamed, the first and last, and then going back again is this loving to dance. And so Yahweh gave himself a foot, Gimmel, because he loves to dance on the place, the garden island, the garden estate, the earth that he made for himself. Here the disembodied one without a limit chose to give himself a limit, a body, bet, to come to the place, the earth, where he could give himself a foot so he'd have a place to put his foot, footstool, other words, a place to dance. With who? Well, he's going to make himself a bet to dance with. And you can say, oh, come on, that's a little, it's like, well, there's this other word, Het, Vav, Lamed. Well, Het is the big white fence, right? And Vav is connecting to Lamed, the teaching and the learning. It's the word hul, or hula. And hula, well, gee, that sounds Hawaiian, a round circle dance. It literally means to dance in a circle. It's also the word for sand. And, of course, the hula dances were done on the sand, and it talks about telling a story. And the other word for dance is rakt, resh, kuf, dalet. It's like, well, hula rocks, That's Yahweh's dance. Hula rocked. But it's, play on words with English. It's a little joke there. I have to explain the jokes. It's too serious. Anyway, the point is, rakhed, hula rakhed, a dance in a circle. If you keep the festivals, that's this circle dance. It's Yahweh's dance. He wants to dance with his people. He gave himself a foot to come here and dance with his people in this story that walks through the year. Every Shabbat, you can participate in this cut off, this separated day where he wants to participate, walking with us. And so for somebody to say, I once heard it said, there's a certain doctrine out there that says there is absolutely no way that the infinite, immaterial, unlimited creator of the universe would materialize as a human being. It's beyond comprehension. It defies any sort of regard for his esteem as being the aloof one. Except apparently that was his plan. Because Aleph, I will, Bet, materialize, Gimmel, give myself a foot to come and walk, Dalet, the earth. Four seasons, four corners. Hey, revealed as Vav, the man who Zion would be slain. It's like, okay, wait a minute. We can read the Old Testament and read where these three showed up, messengers as it were, and talked to Abraham, and it says, okay, Abraham regarded one as Yahweh, but this business of him being slain, I don't know about that. Well, let's see. He came in the form of, Yeshua called himself Ben Adam, the son of man. He didn't call himself the son of Elohim that I can recall reading, and specifically out of his words, but he says the son of Adam. Well, the word son is where we get the word Ben, right? And the word bone would be like bone, like structure, like form, shape. And Adam, Aleph, Dalet, Mem. Well, the word Dalet, Mem is a word for blood. And the word Aleph is a prefix meaning identity and intention, is I am the guy, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bleed. And interestingly enough, the word for footstool literally means a place where I'm going to bloody my feet by getting them pierced and stretched out to be torn apart. It's like that's in the word for earth is my footstool. Earth is going to be the place where I will have my legs, my feet stretched out and punctured to bleed. That's in the Hebrew letters. Sounds like it's Christianity, but it's Hebrew letters. We've only got a couple minutes left here, so I was trying to get a few more things in here for you. Let me ask real quick. We have very short time. Is there any particular questions to regard that I should address before getting into a slightly different subject? What the other things I have here, just so you know, different Bible verses that I've broken up with certain words and letters to emphasize this point. For example, Isaiah 66 verse 4. I will choose to mock them. Here's Yahweh speaking. I will choose to mock, which is to turn it around on them. What they dread, I will bring upon them. Because I called, and no one answered. I spoke, they did not hear. They did what is wrong in my eyes, and what I did not desire, they chose. So here, see the flipping, the inverse, what goes around comes around, the Gimmel. I will choose to do what you guys chose to do to my words. He keeps saying that. So many times, he makes it really clear that the ball is in our court. The choice is up to us. The action is on us of how we will go back and regain the covenant. Jeremiah 30, verse 7, read the whole chapter of Jeremiah 30. Woe, for the day will be momentous, there is nothing like it. It will be a time of trouble for Yaakov, but there's a different way to translate that where it doesn't necessarily mean that. But he will be saved from it. But Yaakov will be saved from the trouble. We've been told the story of the tribulation and the Antichrist and the beast, but Jeremiah chapter 30, Yahweh will be saved. It shall be on that day, Nam Yahweh, and as we discussed before, Nam means Nun, Aleph, Mem. Nun, I will impart, Aleph, Mem, the plan to be brought forth. It's translated as the word for his voice, or thus has declared. It's where we get the word name. That I will break the yoke from your neck. I will tear your straps. Foreigners will no longer enslave him, meaning Yaakov. They will serve Yahweh their Elohim, David their king, who I will establish over them. But as for you, do not fear my servant Yaakov, Nam Yahweh. Do not be afraid, Israel. The word for be afraid there is tachat. It's where we get the word quaking and shivering. And the word altira is do not fear, which is the most often repeated commandment in the entire scriptures. Yahweh says he will bring annihilation on the nations and on the people groups that have annihilated Israel. He will bring trouble upon those who brought trouble to Israel. Those who brought a yoke of servitude onto his people, because his people turned away, he will bring a yoke of servitude on them. He says, I will annihilate every nation but Israel. I will redeem. And there that word for redeem is yod, vav, shin, ayin, going back to save, redeem, help, and deliver again. We're running out of time here to go much more on this. Let me show you one more here. Jeremiah 30:11. It says, there's a play on words here. He says something about, it's the same word for the cry of a female camel, which is spelled nun kuf he. He says, the reason I have chastised or disciplined or tried to correct you, and there's this word here, and it means clean, pure, innocent, purified, and exonerated himself, according to the Red Dictionary. If you look up this word, nun kuf he. And we say, oh, well, that was because of the blood of Yeshua that we were made and declared to be clean, pure, innocent. The place of the red heifer sacrifice, lining up with the same Mishkan pattern, was that if you were in contact with the dead, you were allowed into the sacred set-apart place where no one contaminated was allowed to come in. The purpose of the red heifer sacrifice, in a similar position of the model code as the blood of Yeshua being offered up, was to decontaminate us from our contact with the idolatry, with the galul, with the dung of the dead, of the dark, wicked ones, so that we could enter the kadosh, set apart, sacred, sanctified place of Yahweh. And soon as we come in, because we've been decontaminated, inside the big white fence, right inside the door, was the altar sacrifice. Lines up with the meaning of the letters Kaf and Lamed, which means teach and learn, repeat, lamed, these instructions of the Torah. That's the first thing you do when you come inside the gate. There's no obligation to learn these things outside the gate. You can't. You're in the darkness. The Beatitude, blessed are the poor in spirit. When you recognize your poverty and you see the one that was lifted up, the Nun Samik, there's hope. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of Yahweh. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. We can enter in, but what do you do first when you come in? You learn the instructions. To proclaim that because we've been decontaminated, the instructions cease to exist, may as well rip the two letters K and L, Kaf and Lamed, right out of the words. But see, those same words that mean all, the words of this Torah, are the same words that mean if you keep all these words, you will have the power and capacity and ability to prevail. And that's the covenant. That's the agreement. So for us to say there is no covenant, there is no agreement, means, okay, there is no conditions given to us where we can prevail and have the capacity to overcome our obstacles. This is in the treasure box of the kingdom. This is in the big white fence of the cat. See, the other word is here. He says, and he will not, Aleph, nun kuf resh. So he says he will nun kuf he, clean, pure, and innocent, and not nun kuf resh. But what's this word nun kuf resh? You see, in English, if you read it, they're two completely different words, and it says, but I will not destroy you completely. I will chastise you, but I will not destroy you completely. So in English, you say, okay, oh man, he's going to tear us up, but he's not going to, boy, you know, what did he do to Israel? He always sent them through the Holocaust and the Inquisition, but he left a remnant, and it's like, gosh, is that what he has for us? According to this dictionary, what the words mean here for that word means bore, pierce, dig, to porge veins, which is to remove veins from a meat like a butcher would do, puncture, chisel, pecked, gnawed, pecked out the eyes, puncture and drain out blood is nun kuf. Wait a minute, that's all the stuff that happened to Yeshua. It's a play on words. He says, I'm going to make you clean, pure, and innocent, but I'm not going to tear you apart. That's because that's what happened to Yeshua instead of us. That's where his grace is. And what he said is here is, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to give you purity so that you can operate in the terms of the blessing of the kingdom. But you have to be decontaminated and not return to the contamination. Because to learn the Torah is to learn the ways of the clean, pure, straight path. If you take a nice brand new vehicle and you open up they don't make carburetors anymore, but you open up the carburetor and pour a bunch of sludge down there, you'll have ruined the carburetor. And somebody could say, okay, listen, let me rebuild it for you. And they take it apart and they take out the engine, they clean it all out and they put it back up and you say, great. And the first thing you do is you open it up and you take your sludge and you pour it in the carburetor again. It's like, what are you doing? You'll never drive this thing if every time you get it back from the mechanic, you dump the stuff down there again. We have been told lies about how to operate in the kingdom. And it's because our forefathers, turned away from the covenant. And Yahweh said, okay, that's what you get, 2,730 years, away from here. I'm going to plug my ears while you scream. I'm not going to listen to you until the time, according to the contract, is up. I think it's up. I think the 2,730 years is over. I think we're allowed to come back to the covenant. This is the covenant. We now need to learn the ways of operating here so that we can operate in the covenant, because there's stuff here for us to do as a privilege, but it's according to the terms of the responsibility and the obligation as a good son, as a good daughter, as a good servant, as a good maidservant, as a good beast of burden yoked with Yeshua, walking these things out, which are the ways of righteousness. The Gimmel is all about him saying the third letter. The third letter means there's the bet, which is the distinction, which is the polarity. You have a choice to be disconnected, Gimmel, separated, or reattached, tethered to receive all my stuff like the filling station nozzle. We can make that choice. Dalet, hey, look, there's a bridge. Vav, we just need to choose the distinction. And the Zion, I'm reading it different. Hey, Vav, Zion. Hey, look, choice, right hand, left hand. Blessing or cursing. Zion, have you made the right decision? Are you sure you want this decision? It's irreversible. Once you come to the end of your life, it's irreversible. There's still time to choose. Blessing or cursing, life or death, light or dark. The option is being given to us once again. Let's not make the mistake that our forefathers made.